Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation for the ASC 2020 conference. This paper is titled Initial Student Perception of the Benefits of Participation on an International ASC Competition Team. My name is Blake Wentz. I'm with California State University at Chico, and my two fellow co-authors are Heather Yates and Sreemala Majumder from Oklahoma State University. The construction industry is becoming more globalized each year. More companies are doing work inside and outside of the country, and they're looking at different resources that are globally outsourced all over the world. Most of the companies in the U.S. are seeing an influx of foreign-born workers, and these companies are looking for students that have experience dealing with a multicultural and international type of team. In order to get our students ready to deal with these types of issues, the universities must prepare students to encounter this in their professional lives. When looking at the background for this, for our paper, during the literature review, we looked at different international experiences that are currently available. There is not a ton of literature review out there on a lot of these different programs. But the areas of focus that we looked at are the study abroad programs, distance education, barriers to international experiences, and the ASC international student competition teams. And we will look at each of these individually going forward in this presentation. First, looking at the study abroad programs, which are probably the most common when people think of international experiences. According to the data that we found, currently around 670,000 students enter the U.S. each year as an international student, but unfortunately only 262,000 students from the U.S. actually leave to study abroad each year. Of those students, 41% are international. They do study in the STEM areas, but it's only 16% of the U.S. students do the same when studying abroad. So there is a bit of a gap there in terms of the international experience in engineering and construction management. There are varying different styles of study abroad programs. There are 1 year in length programs, but the vast majority are usually either just a semester or just a very short focused trip that is usually led by a faculty member for 1, 2, or up to 3 weeks. There are also opportunities for students to do an international internship, but the research that we found shows that these opportunities are usually quite rare, and students do not usually take advantage of that type of experience. Another different type of background we looked at is on distance education, which has become much more prevalent lately with the status of the COVID-19 situation. But there are different digital tools that have made distance education much more feasible. Some universities are already doing focused programs that we found. University of Washington, Texas A&M, University of Pittsburgh, to name a few. One of the more focused papers that we found was on a partnership between Union College and Middle East Technical University, where the students worked virtually to design a device using these different types of tools. Once the design was completed, the teams actually traveled to a common site, and they came together at the end to physically build the device together, which made a great experience for the students. Now, with these different types of situations, there are barriers to these experiences. And looking throughout the research, we found several different barriers to universities offering these type of programs to our students. One being there's a resistance to change because many faculty are very busy and don't want to have to take on another item that they don't have time to do. There are time constraints to this, both from the university's perspective and from the student perspective, on will this delay their graduation if they take time off to do an international experience. Cost is a very large constraint on these. There's a high cost associated with this. The students may not often see it because there is a tuition exchange between the universities, but it's the universities that can have disparate costs depending on how many students are going in either direction between schools. There are constraints when working across geographic boundaries. A lot of this does deal when we're talking about using the distance education because of the time change and the difference in locations and cultures that can maybe cause it to be a little bit difficult to try to find common meeting times for students to work together. Another issue is a diversity on views and assessment for accredited programs in the U.S. with either ACCE or with ABET accredited programs. Trying to collect data from foreign schools can prove to be problematic. From what we have found, participation in international experiences in a construction management specific program is still relatively low. But the one thing we did not find any research on, which this paper focuses on, is the ASC international competitions make these international experiences more accessible to students. With the past research in mind, we set out with the methodology of our paper, and we looked at a survey that was both qualitative and quantitative to evaluate the student perception of these the international student competition team on their academic viewing. The survey was informed by previous studies, and the subjects were identified using the team rosters from both the ASC Region 5 and the ASC Region 8 international competitions. 12 students were identified and contacted, and we were quite pleased to learn that all 12 did respond to the survey, and so we had a 100% response rate, even though the overall pool is somewhat low. Inside the survey, there were 8 topical sections that the students were asked to address. These 8 areas were in communication, technical skills, the information technology used, the roles and responsibilities, time perception, cultural background, geographic and time zone differences, and the overall advantages of being in the international competition team. The results of the survey showed 6 main areas of interest. First was communication. The students had indicated that the digital tools used for communication were actually quite seamless and very helpful, and that language was not a barrier, but all of the respondents in this survey, their universities had English as the primary language. The technical skills were also quite similar between the students, but that they were very complementary because of the different backgrounds, and most of the students found this very helpful when it came to the competitions. Technology was one area where they showed that there was some issues. All of the students indicated that they felt they were technically savvy, but the issue was that the different students from different universities were using different types of software. The time constraint was also a strain, not only because the competitions use a lot of time outside of the classroom, but also scheduling meetings between the different time zones. The students also indicated a very high level of enhanced creativity. Because of those different backgrounds between all of the different students, it led to really high-end problem solving. And at the end, all of the students indicated that this had really helped enhance their learning, and they think it will be a benefit to them going forward. So again, in the conclusion of this, the respondents believe that there are significant benefits to participating on an ASC international competition team, and that this led to higher problem-solving abilities because of their differences that they experienced with their team members that gave them a broader view on things. Future research could be conducted to expand the number of respondents to see if these initial views are accurate, and the survey can be expanded to incorporate more quantitative data so that statistic analysis can be used to find actual correlations. I appreciate your time in listening to this. If you have any questions about what was shown here today, please feel free to reach out either to myself at bwentz@csuchico.edu, or you can contact Dr. Heather Yates at Oklahoma State at heather.yates@okstate.edu. Thanks again,